When you come across the word autism, what words tend to come to mind? Special, enabled, nonverbal, right? However, did you know that autism falls within a huge spectrum? And they're different, and with that, there are different variations of autism. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 59 children have been identified with the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, in 2019. And that's a lot of children. That's a lot of our children that are affected by this. And as a pre nursing student, I've had the opportunity to be able to study the brain and see how these abnormalities occur in our brains. And so many people have this preconceived notion about what autism actually looks like. And so there are a bunch of little parts to it and a bunch of different variations that I'll go over. So, in this speech, I will go over what autism actually is, the causes for autism, as well as the different variations or levels of support for autism. So first up, let's explain what autism actually is. In the forum, What is Autism? The Autism Society clarifies autism as a complex, lifelong developmental disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self-regulation. Correspondingly, there are two categories to which autism can be identified. One is social communication, and the next one would be rigid and repetitive behaviors. And in being able to identify social communication, at least according to the Autism Society organization, people who are autistic have a difficult time understanding nonverbal communication, especially since humans use nonverbal communication nearly as often as they speak. And with the rigid and repetitive disorders, an identifiable mark of that would be that these individuals have a identifiable routine that is commonly brought out or identifiable. Now that we understand a little bit more about what autism actually is, let's talk about what causes autism to occur. And one of the most common miscommunications or misconceptions pertaining to autism would be that vaccines cause autism. However, this is a completely inaccurate statement, which is further exploited by Michael Davison, a medical doctor, in his article, Vaccination as a Cause of Autism Myths and Controversies, Dialogues in Clinical Neuroscience, in which he notes that vaccination is not a cause for autism, and if anything, genetics are the ones responsible. And he presented this article in 2017. And to debunk the myth of vaccinations causing autism, the forum Autism Spectrum Disorder comes to play, where the U.S. National Library of Medicine states that 2 to 4% of people with ASD present rare gene mutations, and they are thought to be the cause of this condition. This was recorded in 2020. And now that we've covered what causes autism, let's explore the different levels of support that autistic individuals may need. And this is all based on the amount of dependency an individual may require. And that's why they call it a spectrum, because it's so broad and it's so big, there's so much that goes into it. And according to the article Autism Spectrum Disorders, Arthur Merlin Lerson explains how ASDs are more commonly referred to as autism spectrum disorder, consists of a group of developmental disorders with symptoms that are seen on a continuum ranging from mild to severe expression, meaning that ASD cannot be defined on a particular level or a particular unit per se. And so first we have ASD level 1. And in this level, the individuals may require only a simple little amount of support for their daily lives. And an example of which would be the executive function disorder. This then leads us into ASD level 2. And these individuals require substantial support in order to function properly in our society. And in this case, they will go to therapists, psychologists, but not as frequently. And an example of which would be the persuasive developmental disorder. This then follows with ASD level 3. And these individuals require extremely substantial support to function in their lives. And this would mean that they would need a lot of therapy sessions with a psychiatrist, maybe perhaps even some medication to help them function in our neurotypical society. An example of which would be the obsessive compulsive disorder. And now let's review what we've covered in this speech. So, due to the way that autism is represented to the masses, most people have this predetermined idea about what autism looks like. And through my speech, the aspects of autism are all very important, and they each help determine where in the spectrum one can fall into. So, we went over the definition of autism, what causes autism, and the different levels of autism, and what neurological factors fall within them. In conclusion, autism is not the full incapacity of living. It is simply just how an individual's brain works differently, which can be attributed to the varying levels of autism.